Hey, it's Josh from Grapplezilla, and today I'm going to talk to you about 3 reasons to add wrestling to your BJJ. So, if you look at the history of BJJ, especially mainstream, forget what's in Brazil, but mainstream happened when Royce Gracie basically dominated everyone in UFC, everyone, including myself, and I think it was 1994. We're like, wow, I got to learn this stuff. And a lot of us had a wrestling background, including myself, or a judo background, or sometimes at the time I think Jeet Kune Do was very popular. And during this time, groundwork, we're like, wow, what is this? So BJJ starts dominating. Then all of a sudden kickboxing comes with Maurice Smith and Pete Williams. Actually, wrestling came, especially with Dan Severn, and not so much, but Mark Coleman was the one who really opened it up. And then the evolution went to kickboxing, etc. But there's no doubt that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is one of the biggest martial arts out there, if not the most dominant one right now in terms of people practicing it. Now, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu also isn't the same beast it was when it was in the UFC. It's now got a huge self-defense following, which it always did, which is more of the Gracie Humaita and the Gracie brothers. And it has definitely a much more sport version with IBJJF, and as well as going into grappling and submission grappling, which is Abu Dhabi, etc. And even more so to even more specialized, which is like Eddie Bravo's 10th Planet. But as time goes, we're starting to see that the marriage of wrestling into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is happening. And it's a weird thing to see because there's still a lot of issues with teaching Jiu-Jitsu guys who haven't wrestled before how to wrestle. And I'm going to talk about 3 reasons to add wrestling to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that are a little bit different than you need to know how to take down someone, you need to know how to do a headlock, get out of it, etc. This is going to be more about the actual reason. So let's get down to it. The first reason to add wrestling to your jiu-jitsu is because of something called wrestling pressure. Now, what is wrestling pressure? Wrestling pressure means that you're always in an act of a few things. It could be that you have aggressiveness on the person, they're carrying your weight all the time, you're always pushing, pulling. It's never a point where you're just inside the pocket waiting to attack. You're always attacking the head, using pressure to open up movements. Now, the reason I get into wrestling pressure is because a lot of jiu-jitsu guys end up coming to each other and then they're like in this pocket that they're afraid to commit. And there's a good reason why. It's because if they commit, they can get submitted. Sometimes a Kimura trap into a Kimura, they can get a guillotine and various submissions and in bad places. But if you keep on not recognizing that you need wrestling pressure in order to add wrestling properly, you end up a thing where you know the takedowns, but you can't do them because you don't just go for a double. You need to set up a double. You don't just go to hit a single. You need to set up a single, right? And the way to do that is through wrestling pressure. And a good way to do this is to actually learn how to wrestle under wrestling's rules, because it'll give you the attribute of pressure which you need. And once you have that pressure, you're going to start wrestling a lot like guys we've seen in Abu Dhabi, where they're starting to using wrestling pressure, and that because they're using the pressure, they're able to dominate the other people on the ground and end up getting into a position they want to be in. So it's usually top position, hopefully inside mount, etc., or straight to a submission. Now, the second thing that you have to know that you should wrestle for jiu-jitsu is to learn the wrestling scramble. So, for those of you who don't know what a scramble is, imagine 2 cats scrambling for top position in order to get it. So wrestling has great, the rule set especially, is great to teach someone how to scramble. So in jiu-jitsu, for example, when you go to a position, it's very common that someone pulls guard and then they close, okay? And that's fine. But sometimes you want to know how to scramble. And there's been great jiu-jiteros who have learned how to scramble very well. For example, Marcelo Garcia, king at scrambling. Nick Rodriguez, Gary Tonon, amazing at scrambling ability. And they use that scrambling to get in superior positions and then start working to beat the guy. So a great way, once again, to learn how to scramble is to use wrestling's parterre, the groundwork, as the rules, in order so you get used to not relying to get on your back, but to get off and to reverse to another position. Scrambling also can be on when you're on your feet. So, for example, someone goes for a single leg head in. Well, you need to scramble it, not just defend, but scramble and counter and re-attack or get to a better position. And I think this is a great reason to learn wrestling, because you take that scrambling ability and you now take it to your jiu-jitsu. And the product of doing that is starting to look something like Buchecha, even Jacare, Sauza. He was amazing at scrambling ability. I mean, he was a great thrower too from his judo, but he would throw you and get into top position, but there would always be a bit of a scramble at the end because the guy would try to recover guard and Jacare would come and get you into side position or into a very dominant position and then generally get you into a very dominant submission and win. Now the third that I think is such an important emphasis to have in jiu-jitsu, and I think that wrestling really brings us in, is wrestling's emphasis on standing up, which has to do with the relation to the scramble and has to do with the relation to the wrestling pressure itself. And I think this actually gets jiu-jitsu more dangerous in terms of MMA as well, okay? As well as Abu Dhabi too, because you can, and grappling, because you can get up to score again. But in wrestling, if someone to take me down, I mean, I want to get up as fast as possible, right? In order to get back to position, not get scored on, not be in a bad position on the ground, and also to counter. And a lot of times in jiu-jitsu, once again, if someone takes me down, and this is fine, this is also one of jiu-jitsu's strengths, but we want to also add some attributes of wrestling because we see it dominating. Wrestling is, the jiu-jitsuers who all know wrestling, most part, are dominating people because of this. For example, if you were to take Buchecha down, now he could pull you to guard, but most likely he's going to scramble up, stand up again and take you down, or go to top position. So when you have an emphasis of standing back up, it also gives you an emphasis of getting back into a position that you can get into top game again. And there's no doubt you want to be in top game over bottom game. I mean, during the 90s, the Carlson Gracie Champions Factory was so dominant because they got into top game. And you're already a step above, you know? You're attacking, the other one's defending, generally. So with wrestling, the emphasis on standing back up is extremely important to bring into jiu-jitsu because it gives you the chance to get into a position to get onto top position again. It gets you in a position, a chance to get into an attack for takedown, which you can get points, and once again get into top position again to attack. And I think it's very good also if you talk about self-defense, because sometimes you don't want to be in guard in self-defense, and if you emphasize in scrambling and getting up back to your feet, it gives you a better chance to defend yourself and run away if you need to, because I mean they say he who runs away lives to fight another day. Anyways, I have an article on grapplezilla.com called 3 Reasons to Add Wrestling to Your BJJ, and I hope you like this one. And if you have any comments, I would love to hear it. And yeah, looking forward to the next video.